Welcome back to What Do You Know with Nick and Devin. I'm Nick.
I'm Devin.
All right. Well, let's get into... Tell me more about Phoenix. We were in the middle of that conversation.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about off the pod, but really just
Two seconds ago.
Yeah, 2 seconds ago. We were talking about how Jean Grey becomes Phoenix.
Right.
And
she destroys the whole planet?
Yeah, she...
Who kills her?
I don't know who kills her, but I know she has a beef with Eric the Red out in space. She kills the whole planet, and then she realizes she's evil and crazy, and then kind of calms down.
Oh, she doesn't... I thought she was going to be like, I'm going to put myself down. But she doesn't. No. She just is like,
she's
I'll
like,
chill.
what have I done? Blood on my hands.
Got it.
Sorry.
I'll chill out. And then she just exists.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this was back in the 90s, early 90s story, so I don't know what's up with that now.
Who plays Jean Grey in the movie?
Don't ask me actors' names.
Oh, come on. It was someone big, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't know actors' names. I don't know your name.
Surprise, surprise.
That's why I always have you say your name at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, exactly.
You haven't caught me looking over at the little board behind us, being like, what's his name?
Just to make sure.
Devin. That must be Nick.
Well, because James Marsden is Cyclops.
Sure.
You really don't know.
No, I don't know except for Patrick Stewart. Sir Patrick Stewart.
Exactly. Well, if you're going to... Jesus.
Right.
And Sir Ian McKellen.
Right.
Come on, you know that.
They're BFFs.
Buddies for life. Okay, interesting. Why were we talking about Phoenix again? I feel like I brought it up.
You
Jean
did.
Grey.
Jean Grey.
Anna Paquin was rough in that. She was fine. Just annoying.
Because you said your hair...
Well, because I have this one gray streak going on. I mean, there's a lot of grays in there, but it's just very prominent right there. Yeah. You got that one on the side.
Right.
Let's point to each other's grays.
I used to pluck them out, and now I just accept them.
Why?
I don't know.
Wow. Because then you pluck one and two more grow back. It's like a Hydra situation.
That's probably why I have so much gray hair. Certainly not any stress in my life.
Exactly. Speaking of stress in your life, have you ever been in a caper?
In a caper?
Have you ever been a part of a caper? Have you ever expunged onto a caper? Have you done anything like that? Any capers in your life? Any adventures? Any...
Legally, I can't talk about any of the capers I've been a part of. I've enjoyed some capers with my chicken.
Boo. Boo.
I love the what's the Muppet movie? It's like the Great
Muppets
Great Muppet Caper.
The Great Muppet Caper.
Something like that.
Never
that
seen it.
Phenomenal.
I'm not a Muppet person. I just don't care.
I don't care about you anymore.
Wow.
All right.
Wow, it all comes out.
Yeah.
And this is the end. I mean, 39 episodes.
Couldn't make it 1 year.
Yeah, couldn't make it 1 year.
Okay, so...
Wait, but I didn't know you were a huge Muppet guy.
I love the Muppets.
Really?
Yeah.
Brian's family's all about the Muppets, and I said, hot topic, it's fine. I'm not 7 anymore. You know what I mean?
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't die for the Muppets, but I watch the Muppet Christmas Carol every holiday. It's the one Christmas movie I watch.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot better Christmas movies than the Muppet Christmas Carol.
I'm sorry, Gonzo playing Charles Dickens.
Rizzo and Gonzo always lead those, which is fine. Typically. Yeah. But I just I'll give you Dark Crystal. Those are fun Muppets. Or Labyrinth. Those are fun Muppets. But
they're
I feel
not
like I don't
Muppets. They're just
Jim Henson characters.
Yeah, they're puppets created by the Jim Henson Company.
Couldn't you call that a Muppet?
No.
Why?
Muppet is a very big definition.
Wouldn't die for them, but apparently going straight into an argument for it.
Well, it's like saying that I don't know, I don't even know where I was going with that, but
perfect.
It's a square and a rectangle situation.
Oh, sure. Okay. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
What do you call it? Well, let's get into...
Can we talk about capers?
Let's get into my topic, which has to do with capers.
Okay.
Adventures.
Uh-huh.
Whimsy.
Sure.
Not a lot of whimsy here.
Choose your own adventure book?
Could you imagine? Today we're going to be talking about the Great Canadian Caper. Well, the great part I added, but it really is just called the Canadian Caper. Uh-huh. So, what do you know about the U.S. Iran
holy shit
hostage crisis?
Which one?
Of 1979.
There we go. That one. Okay. Wow. Of 1979. Mm-hmm. Well,
during the Carter administration.
Right. Mm-hmm. I know it was pretty stressful.
Pretty stressful.
Pretty stressful.
Spot on.
Why don't you go on with it, though?
Yeah. Thanks for letting me take the lead on that one.
I'll let you.
You fill in the gaps if I miss any.
Right.
So this specific part of that hostage situation is the Canadian caper.
Okay.
But it's included within the hostage crisis.
Sure.
Okay. So January 27th, 1980. After scouting for an appropriate location to shoot a scene for the science fiction film Argo, a production that had been abandoned, a full 8-person party passed through passport control at the airport in Tehran, boarded a Swiss Air flight to Zurich, and escaped Iran. Iran. I'm there.
Argo, like the Ben Affleck movie?
Yes. Finally, he knows some fucking pop culture around here. Yes. I mean this was 1980, so like a little different, like not that one, but Argo, the Ben Affleck movie, is based off of
this. Yeah, okay.
That's like one of my last bullets. Thanks.
Hey,
for jumping ahead.
I read ahead.
How dare you?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a joint covert rescue by the It was a joint covert rescue by the Canadian government and the CIA of 6 American diplomats that were able to evade capture.
Okay.
So let's go into a little background of Iran-U.S. relations at the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So during World War II, the British and Soviet governments invaded and occupied Iran. This forced the first Pahlavi monarch, Reza Shah Pahlavi, to abdicate to his eldest son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. So Britain and the Soviet Union at the time both claimed that they invaded preemptively in order to stop Reza Shah from aligning his petroleum-rich country with Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
They're like, yo, we're only invading to make sure this doesn't get into the wrong hands, right? Even though the real reason was probably that Iran, I'm just going to say it either way. I'm going to throw that out there. Iran had declared neutrality and refused to allow Iranian territories to be used to train or supply Soviet troops.
Okay.
So they were like, sure, you can say that it was all for the good of the war, but obviously I think this is more so for the aspect of you said you were neutral. Right. So the U.S. doesn't invade, but secures Iran's independence after the war ended by forcing the Soviet Union to withdraw in 1946 through intense diplomatic pressure. In the 1950s, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi is in a power struggle with Iran's prime minister of the time, who happens to be a direct descendant of the preceding dynasty in Iran. So before the Pahlavis are in like kind of that monarch seat, it was the prime minister's family before that.
Okay.
So now his lineage is now a prime minister. But as we see in Britain, there's sometimes conflict between the monarchy and the parliament, right?
Who knew?
We'll get into that next week. So while in the 1950s, while this power struggle is happening, the prime minister led a general strike and demanded an increased share of the nation's petroleum revenue from the Anglo-Iranian oil company stationed there at the time. They're like, you're not giving us enough money from the revenue that you're generating from our oil. Right. The UK retaliates that strike by reducing the amount of revenue which the Iranian government receives. So they're like, you're in a strike? Less money.
Perfect.
Right. Do it again. See what happens. That's basically what the UK said. In 1953, CIA and MI6 implement Operation Ajax that supported Iranian royalists depose the prime minister in a military coup. Okay. I actually wrote out coup d'etat.
Oh.
But I feel like I could just say coup. I don't know why I typed the whole thing. A lot of apostrophes and accents in that. This allows Shah, the monarch at the time, to extend his power. So the Shah reigns for the next 2 decades, purging any, quote, disloyal elements within the state. And with U.S. support, the CIA trains the Iranian secret police.
Yeah.
So we're like, we love you guys. We're going to train all your people. Yeah. We love the royal. It's great.
Yeah. And then 9/11 happened.
Because as long as we can pay off the royals, then we don't have to give a shit to the rest of the country.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So during Shah's reign, murmurs of the revolutionaries began with anti-royal and anti-American rhetoric, right? Because we're supporting the royal dynasty, right? So on New Year's Eve, 1977, President Jimmy Carter toast Shah Pahlavi on television, claiming that he was beloved by his people, which only, of course, further angered anti-Shah Iranians. So great job with that toast, Jimmy Carter. The Iranian Revolution begins a few months later and with the return of the Ayatollah Khomeini.
Okay.
So February 14th, 1979, the Organization of Iranian People's Fidai guerrillas storms the American embassy in Tehran and takes Marine Kenneth Krause hostage. This was known as the Valentine's Day Open House. Just a little guys, a little tongue-in-cheek there. Ambassador William H. Sullivan surrendered the embassy to save lives, but with support from the Iranian foreign minister, the embassy is returned to U.S. hands within only 3 hours.
Okay.
Krause, however, was injured, kidnapped, tortured, convicted of murder, and sentenced to be executed.
Oh.
President Carter and Ambassador Sullivan secure his release, though, within 6 days. Which is sorry you had to go through all of that, but at least you weren't executed.
Yeah, 6 days is a long time.
That's rough. Can you imagine being tortured for 6 days? Let's try it.
I've been listening to you for 38 weeks.
Fucking son of a...
Yeah, that's not the same at all. Anyway.
We have been wanting to go viral lately. Maybe it's because we throw down in the middle of an episode. So after this event, the embassy windows were actually replaced with bulletproof glass, and the staff was reduced from about 1,000 people to just 60. They're we're not taking chances on this again because tensions are pretty high. Let's just cut some losses while we can, right?
Right.
So the Carter administration attempts to mitigate anti-American feeling by promoting a new relationship with the de facto government and continuing military cooperation, but shockingly, they fuck it up. So, October 22nd, 1979, the U.S. permits the Shah to enter New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center for medical treatment of lymphoma. So, the State Department highly discourages this. They're like, okay, you're trying to get on good terms with this new de facto government that's very anti-Shah and very anti-you, the U.S., and now you're allowing the Shah to come to the U.S. to seek medical treatment.
Okay.
So the State Department highly discouraged the decision due to the political delicacy. They're like, do not do this. Right? However, pressure from influential figures like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and Council on Foreign... Yeah, he's back, baby.
Oh my God. He dipped his ugly toe into this shit. Jesus Christ.
My thing is, I think this man lived for 10,000 years. I feel there's so many parts of history, especially as we're growing, is oh, Henry Kissinger. I was
he's there.
I feel I heard about you during the French Revolution. What are we talking about? How are you still around?
Yeah, right. Oh, you were there when the first person threw the first rock?
What's happening? Jesus.
Henry Kissinger supplied that rock.
Not just crawled from underneath a hole in the ground. My God. So... with influential figures like Henry Kissinger and Council on Foreign Relations Chairman David Rockefeller, the request is granted. Of course, Jimmy Carter's they wouldn't lead me astray. And his Secretary of State is do not do this. Yeah. So the decision further fueled and intensified Iranian revolutionaries with rumors that another U.S.-backed coup would occur to reinstall the Shah, right? Because the de facto government's we're in charge, right? Shah's done, we're good. And so U.S. is we're going to play nice. Everything's good, but we also still really support the Shah, and he's going to come and get treated at our hospital. So they're well, then are you setting something else up? You know what I mean? Of course they're so skeptical. You know what I mean? You already did one coup, why not another? So the Ayatollah Khomeini heightened the rhetoric against the, quote, Great Satan, aka U.S., by stating that there was evidence of an American plot. So he's just fueling the fire, right? Okay. He's look at all these things and trying to rouse the troops, right? So now we're at the second attempt to seize the American embassy that was planned for September of 1979 by Iranian students organized by Ibrahim Asgharzadeh, and called themselves the Muslim Student Followers of the Imam's Line. That's their whole kind of title as a joint unit.
All right.
They like the length. So the message was, quote, our aim was to object against this American government by going to the embassy and occupying it for several hours. Announcing our objections from within the occupied compound would carry our message to the world in a much more firm and effective way. We intended to detain the diplomats for a few days, maybe 1 week, but no more.
Okay.
They're like, we're just trying to get in, say a few things, kind of make a statement, and then we're going to get the fuck out. Right? So they enlisted the support of police officers in charge of guarding the embassy and of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards while drawing on their experiences from recent revolutions. So as they're building it, they're like, let's get some inside guys just to be able to occupy it quicker and easier, right?
Yeah.
So November 4th, 1979, a demonstration organized by Iranian student union loyalists loyal to Khomeini erupted into an all-out conflict right outside the U.S. Embassy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cute.
So, like, we're going to demonstrate in front of it. Now, this was kind of all part of the plan, right? Like, let's get some demonstrations, then let's kind of overwhelm and do all of that, right? So, at about 6:30 a.m., organizers had gathered 300 to 500 selected students and briefed them on the battle plan.
Okay.
Now, there's multiple colleges and universities that kind of are a part of this, so that's why you get such like a large size of people.
Right.
But the other thing was just like, God, you selected 300 to 500 people. My God, like, we can just put out a bulletin. So a female student was given a pair of metal cutters to hide under her chador, which is like it's kind of like a wrap. But it goes over the head and is concealed and goes like all the way down.
Okay.
So it's kind of this like full body wrap. So it's very easy to have something kind of underneath, right? To break the chains, locking the embassy's gates. So the initial intent was a planned symbolic occupation so they could release statements to the press and leave when the government security forces came to restore order. So they're like, once they get back up, like, we'll peace out, right? Like, we get it. Like, we're just really trying to make a statement but still be peaceful in a way, right? So they had placards saying, quote, "Don't be afraid, we just want to sit in." Others that said, "We don't mean any harm," because when embassy guards pulled firearms, the protesters retreated and kind of were like, "We don't mean any harm," like all those things, right? But when students realized the guards would not use deadly force, and with a large angry crowd gathering outside the compound, bus after bus full of demonstrators like came and were cheering on protesters, kind of jeering and yelling at hostages, the plan quickly shifted. Because they're like, well, now we're not really in danger of losing our lives if the guards aren't going to use deadly force.
Okay.
Like the guns that the guards kind of pulled and were more so for show.
Crowd control
than they were to like actually going to shoot someone, right? So when Khomeini heard word of the incident, because he was left out of it, they never told the Ayatollah anything about what was happening. So when he found out about it, he endorsed it and called it, quote, "the second revolution." They then demanded the return of the Shah to Iran for their own trial. So that was kind of the big thing. They're like, we're going to hold hostages until you bring the Shah back to Iran so that we can put him under trial.
Okay.
Right? It's interesting, though, because there is kind of this conflicting storyline where someone goes and tells the Ayatollah, like, hey, this is happening. And the Ayatollah is, like, not for it. And is like, get them out. Like, pull them out, right?
Interesting.
But by the time that messenger gets back to the area, he's hearing on the radio the Khomeini being like, no, we absolutely, like, we support this and like all of the things, right? Endorsing it. It's the second revolution. He's like, okay, so I'm not going to pull them out then because now all of a sudden you're endorsing it. You know what I mean? So like all of a sudden there was this shift in gears.
Right.
But again, like if he changed his mind after the messenger left, what are you going to do? It's not cell phones, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it kind of makes sense, but it is interesting that like there was this shift supposedly from initial kind of hearing about it to now to endorsing it. So the Marines and the embassy staff were blindfolded by the occupiers and then paraded in front of assembled photographers. In the first couple of days, many of the embassy workers who had snuck out of the compound or had not been there at the time of the takeover were actually rounded up and returned as hostages. However, 6 Americans managed to avoid capture through 6 Canadians were Wow. 6 Americans managed to avoid capture, and the Canadian caper begins.
Finally, the Canadian caper.
So that was just a little background of like events leading up to, obviously, like why there's this conflict, how it kind of all started, and now here we are, right?
Right.
So this is the caper. I'm not as good as that as you are.
Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, can you?
What's my line?
This is the caper.
This is the caper.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So much better. Okay, so as Iranians came over the walls of the compounds, diplomats Robert Anders, Cora Auburn-Lejeck, Mark Lejeck, Joseph Stafford, and Kathleen Stafford made a break for it towards the British embassy.
Okay.
So actually, there was kind of 2 separate groups that were running towards the British embassy. One diverted and were actually captured. And Anders group, because Anders is kind of like the de facto leader here, like within Notes. The Anders group is able to evade that capture, which is crazy. So upon approaching, the group noticed a massive crowd forming a protest in their path. And so Robert Anders brought the others to his home nearby.
Oh.
He's like, you know what? I live nearby. This is going to get fucked real quick. Let's just go to my place.
That's convenient.
And see what exactly. And so over the span of 6 days, aided by a Thai cook, Somchai Sam Sriwarnathar, the group jumped from house to house, even spending the night at the British residential compound. So like, I think the Sam was kind of used as a outlook to kind of go and make sure everything was safe and do all those things. But after 3 days, the Iranian government in place had fallen, and the diplomats realized that they would not be over quickly.
No.
They're like, maybe we could wait this out. Like the last one only lasted 3 hours. Like we can get something. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh,
shit,
like, this is not going to go well. So at this point, Anders contacted an old friend, John Sheardown, a Canadian immigration officer, to which John immediately invited the whole group to his house. He's like, just get here, right? So the group arrives at the Sheardown residence on November 10th, and were also greeted by the Canadian ambassador, Ken Taylor, right? So it all starts on November 4th, where on November 10th, we get greeted by the ambassador, Ken Taylor. By the end of the night, the ambassador had taken the Staffords back to his house, with Anders and the Lejecks staying at the Sheardowns. So they kind of split the group so not everyone's in one place, and also like the Sheardowns don't need all these people living in their house.
Right.
Approximately 2 weeks later, because again, like nobody really knows, everything's kind of tense, right? So approximately 2 weeks later, Taylor receives a call from the Swedish ambassador asking him to take in American Lee Schatz, who had initially slept on the floor of the Swedish embassy and then was moved to an apartment of a Swedish consul member. But they were like, the Swedish ambassador felt that Schatz would be better impersonating a Canadian than a Swede. He's like, all right, so we got this guy who's been living on our floor.
Right.
And then, you know, this person was nice enough to take him in, but like now things are getting a little crazy. Like, he's not a Swede. Like, can you just take it better? He's an American, probably more assimilated to a Canadian aspect. Right. So Taylor agrees and takes Schatz to the Sheardown residence.
Okay.
So in total, the group stayed with the Canadian officials for 79 days.
Wow.
Yeah. The Canadians taking on great personal risk for sheltering the Americans in their private homes, of course. Eventually, Taylor contacted the Canadian Secretary of State for External Affairs and the Canadian Prime Minister for assistance. Yeah. He's like, okay, look, we can't, need your help. Yeah, we can't keep doing this because before you know it, we're whatever.
We're going to get fucked. Yeah.
Correct. So after expressing support for the sheltering efforts, they're like, oh my God, great job. Thank you for doing that. They decided to smuggle the 6 Americans out of Iran on an international flight by using Canadian passports. So an order in council, which is legislation made in the name of the monarch, so it kind of like has that stamp of approval, was made to issue official multiple copies of Canadian passports with various fake identities.
Okay.
They're like, we need this high level of to make sure that can happen. Excuse me. These passports also contained a set of forged Iranian visas prepared by the CIA to support the Americans escaping Iran.
Okay.
So that's a little bit of like of how everything's starting to play out. Right?
Yeah.
So
a lot of people are involved.
You got Canadians, you got the CIA, you have, the 6 diplomats, all of that, right? So now we get into the preparation of how they're going to pull this caper off, right? And like, what is the plan here? So the CIA brings in Tony Mendez, who is a disguise and exfiltration expert, to provide a cover story, documents, appropriate clothing, and materials to change the diplomats' appearances. Which, imagine being an expert in disguise and exfiltration.
That just sounds like a theater major with a serious job.
They're like, I don't know how the hell I landed this, but we're going to keep going with it.
Last week, I was doing costumes for the Phantom, but this time...
Yeah, they saw cats, and they're like, oh my God, it's amazing. And he's like, I got a job for you.
Right.
So after working closely with the Canadian government staff to have the documents prepared, the materials were sent to the Canadian embassy through a Canadian diplomatic courier.
I have a question, though.
Tell me more.
Jumping back a little bit. Because you said that, they sent clothes to also change the appearance. What's the wardrobe difference between an American and a Canadian? Was it just more flannel?
I think it's more so, the diplomats are in more business attire. You know what I mean? And it's not like they can go get their clothes.
Fair.
And so then they start to shift into this new plan of them being not diplomats. And so they're like, you need more rugged, some cargos and a flannel.
Fair enough.
Yes.
And there was maybe some we're going to send you a bodysuit so you look a little different.
Well, and some prosthetics, things like that.
Yeah, that's what I meant. You make yourself look a little bit bigger than you normally are.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Change your physical appearance. Okay. Anyway.
That's what I was stuck mounting.
on. Right. Yeah. It's you're walking out looking like a beaver. I don't know.
Right. They're like, take cats, but make it Canadian. Yeah. Beavers. The musical. I want that Android Weber, please. Thank you. So they sent all that stuff through diplomatic courier. Because nothing can be revealed then, right? Which is great. Mm-hmm. That's kind of even the episode that I did last with the OSS, where everything was kind of handled through a diplomatic bag. Same thing. You cannot look within the bag. So at this point, Mendez flew to Tehran with Ed Johnson to assist with the rescue. Johnson, being a linguist and extractions expert who Mendez previously worked within the CIA's Office of Technical Service branch. So he's like, hey, this is my buddy. We work together. Mm-hmm. He's going to be great in this. Let's go. The two of us. It wasn't actually some interesting thing about Ed Johnson. It wasn't until September 14th, 2023 that we found out the identity of Ed Johnson.
Oh, wow.
It was he had previously only been known as Julio.
Huh.
And so it was released, his name was released on a season finale of the Langley Files podcast.
No shit.
They finally announced who he was. I was like, that's crazy and very recent.
Yeah. I wouldn't expect that at all.
So, which kind of makes sense because I think some of what he was doing, especially extractions and stuff, was kind of a little more covert. But now they're he's probably retired at this point or maybe past. So, anyway, so that was kind of cool. So the cover story of The Caper is the 6 Americans were to be 6 Canadians working on a Hollywood crew scouting movie locations. Hence the little blurb in the beginning of the episode. So the backstory concerned a film named Argo, which was based on the 1967 Roger Zelazny science fiction novel Lord of Light.
Okay.
Who Roger Zelazny is most famously known for The Chronicles of Amber, which I don't know if you know that at all. I put that in there because I was like, you might know that.
No, I don't. Amber?
Amber.
No, I don't think I do.
Okay, never mind. I thought it was going to be Ember because that feels more scientific, but it's not. It's Amber. Anyway, the original production had been abandoned before the start of filming after it was revealed the funds were embezzled. So, in real life, this movie being made, Argo, the funds were embezzled. This was actually going to be a movie. Yeah. Okay. And then it was abandoned because of the funds. Fun. Don't you hate it when your project gets destroyed because of embezzlement? Ugh, every time. And so the concept art was already created, though. So everything was kind of in a good spot to be able to just take that on, right? Yeah. So the art was actually created by Jack Kirby.
Oh, okay.
Do you know Jack Kirby?
Maybe.
I'll give you a little inside scoop.
Yeah.
And the script complete with a set on a planet with a Middle Eastern feel, so the team could justify their desire to scout locations in Iran.
Right.
So it kind of all fell into place. Jack Kirby is a famous comic book artist who created characters such as Captain America, Ant-Man, The Avengers, Black Panther, Fantastic Four, The Eternals, Hulk, Iron Man, Silver Surfer, Thor, X-Men, and more.
Is this why we talked about Jean Grey in the beginning?
No, but I'm glad that tied in.
Yeah.
Truly.
It'll make me editing this a lot easier.
Yeah. It is crazy that this one artist, though, created all of these major characters.
Yeah, I remember him now.
But once it was said that he did the Avengers, I was like, oh, so then he probably created all of the Avenger characters. Yeah. But anyway, it's very, very cool that he had done that. So Mendes enlists the help of a veteran Hollywood makeup artist, John Chambers, to make the cover believable.
Okay.
So because Mendes is also flying to Tehran, so a lot of things have to happen like from a Hollywood standpoint, like in LA, right? He can't be flying all over the place. So together, they established a functioning office at Sunset Goer Studios on Sunset Boulevard named Studio 6 Productions, a nod to the Six Diplomats. They really think they're funny.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
It would be
I feel like you'd be more careful.
You would think, just like in the OSS where they're like, how to set up a Secret Service office. And you're like, guys, come on.
Right. Or like, I don't remember exactly, but like some of the... for Operation Fist, like they had all those like tongue-in-cheek shit.
Yes.
It's like, are you serious?
Hey,
like,
guys,
I know the best way to hide is in plain sight.
The waiting music was like, I broke the law and the law won. Or something.
Right.
Anyway, or I fought the law. And so they set up this fake studio, and people were placed to answer telephone calls in case anyone should call to check on the film's production. So Joan Siddell was used as the receptionist, while her husband Robert posed as the film's producer, although he had fellow makeup artist with Chambers. Okay. So Roger Siddell was a makeup artist along with Chambers. That's how they knew each other. But Roger posed as the production or the producer, and Joan was the receptionist at the fake studio.
Okay.
Right. So display ads for the upcoming Studio 6 film were placed in Hollywood publications, even giving one of the newspapers to Cora Legic to carry as part of her covert materials, like to get through the airport and everything, right? They also made fake business cards, held a film party at a nightclub in LA, and took out early ads in Variety and The Hollywood Reporter to play into the industry more. They're like, we want people to believe that this is happening, right? So once in Tehran, the teachings of the story began to unfold, but a slight mistake was noticed by a Canadian embassy officer. So the Iranian visas were dated incorrectly. The Iranian calendar year begins at the spring equinox, not in January like the beginning of our traditional calendar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or Gregorian calendar. So luckily they packed extras and Mendes was able to insert new visa stamps with the appropriate dates.
Oh, that's good.
Because you're going to an Iranian airport, they're going to notice that.
Right? Absolutely.
So weeks of preparation passed, and Taylor flew out non-essential Canadian personnel while also sending others on fake errands to establish erratic patterns and to case airport procedures. Because he's like, we need to get people out of the Canadian embassy, but also make sure that everything seems to be pretty kosher, right? But we're also kind of tense and erratic, and we need a cover to be able to see what's going on at the airport, right? So over time, though, tensions began to rise as suspicious phone calls and other activity indicated that the concealment of the diplomats might have been discovered. So like, oh, fuck, like we got to move. Yeah. Like, because now is the time. Things are kind of weird outside the embassy. Like, phone calls are happening. Like, it's weird. So on Sunday, January 27th, 1980, which is today we're recording.
Today's the 28th.
Oh, fuck.
Nerd.
Damn it. Cut that out. So on Sunday, January 27th, 1980, the rescue plan is enacted.
Oh.
So
yesterday was the anniversary.
Fuck you. Mendes, Johnson, and the 6 American diplomats head to Tehran's international airport. As they approach the security area, things are kind of tense, and they easily make it through.
Wait. Is that it? That's it? Oh. All right.
So the real Canadian passports and forged entry documents worked.
It all went to plan.
It all went to plan, yeah. Right. So after a small flight delay due to mechanical difficulties, the group hopped on Swiss Air Flight 363 for Zurich, Switzerland. The airplane actually that they were on was named Argu after the Argu canton in northern Switzerland, which sounds like Argo.
Wow.
Isn't that a little weird? That's a little weird.
That's kind of funny.
So after landing in Zurich, the diplomats were taken to a safe house in the mountain lodge for the night. There they were told they could not speak to the press and that they would be kept hidden in a secret location in Florida until the hostage situation at the American embassy in Tehran had been resolved.
Right, because otherwise the remaining hostages...
Right. They're like, how the hell did that happen, right? Yeah. So interestingly enough, the same day the caper left Tehran, the Canadians closed their embassy with Taylor and the little remaining staff returning to Canada. They're like, great, we don't have to do this whole...
We can shut it down now.
Yeah, charade anymore, close it down, get home, right? Yeah. So Monday, January 27th, so the next day, 1980, the story broke in Montreal in an article written by Jean Pelletier, who was a Washington correspondent for La Presse in Montreal.
Okay.
So, Jean, the story was picked up by international press. Once this broke, the diplomats were driven from Switzerland to West Germany to be flown out of U.S. Air Base to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. So, the group was back on American soil on January 30th, 1980.
Wow. Okay.
So, because they were like, we can't hide you anymore because now the world knows about this, but we have to get you out of here now.
Right.
It's also crazy that it's 1980, so there is a West and East Germany.
Yeah.
So Pelletier had actually uncovered facts concerning the escaped diplomats before January 28th, 1980, but did not publish the story until after he knew the six had left Iran.
Oh, okay.
Because he knew the safety of those involved had to be preserved.
Right.
He was like, they're all fucked if I run this. The Canadians, everyone. And he's in Montreal. He's like, my own people are at risk, right? So although the story was blown and plans had shifted post-caper, the CIA's involvement was kept secret at the time by both the U.S. and Canadian governments. It was not revealed until 1997 when the records were declassified.
It seems like such a short time for the records to be declassified, but interesting.
From 80 to 97?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're also there's not a lot here. You know what I mean?
What are they going to do now?
Right. Well, and the reason they wanted to keep the CIA's involvement under wraps was because they didn't want it to seem like an American plot. They're like, the Canadians, that's fine. You guys helped the Americans get out.
Right.
That's on you.
You helped your allies. That's all you.
Correct. And so, but if they found out that America was a part of that, that again kind of goes back to this whole thing of we have to keep you in hiding until all of this settles out, right?
Right.
So the news was a shock to the public because the Carter administration had maintained the fact that all missing American diplomats were held hostage for negotiation purposes.
Right.
So a little bit of resolve on the hostage situation. The hostages in the U.S. Embassy were kept captive for a total of 444 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And would not be freed until January 20th, 1981. Mm-hmm. So 2 failed rescue attempts also occurred to get the hostages out before that date, but it wasn't until the government and the prime minister resigned that the negotiations were successful and the Algiers Accords were put into place.
Wow.
Which those accords were signed the day of or the day after Reagan took office.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
Carter set everything up and he was like, it's bananas. But yeah, 444 days. And some of the rescue attempts, one was super weird, but the other one, they had mechanical failure with the choppers they were using, and it was just a shitstorm from the start.
Jesus,
yeah, it was bad. Because also, the hostages were at first all held at the embassy, and then they started, because of the failed attempts, they spread the hostages out.
Yeah.
Yep. And so then it was now we can't, you know what I mean?
We're not going to have a clean operation to
right,
get them
exactly.
all out. Yeah.
So American gratitude for Canada's actions were displayed widely, with Canadian flags flown in numerous locations across the U.S.
All right.
And ads were taken out on thank you billboards. They're like, thanks, Canada. You're great. Okay. And my last bullet point is you can go watch Ben Affleck's Argo, which won Best Picture at the Oscars in 2013, but contains both fact and fiction. So go watch it for the fun of the film, right? And Best Picture. Yeah. And it's kind of set around this situation, or it's about the situation, but of course it's a movie, so they're gonna add all the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure I would love to watch the airport scene because I love the fact that they very easily get through the airport security and onto the flight, but I'd love to see what he does to like amplify that tension and all of that.
Well, it's probably like, this date looks a little doctor.
Someone gets taken into interrogation or something. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, that's the Canadian caper.
It's like their shirt comes a little bit unbuttoned and like they have a huge American eagle and flag, like old school traditional tattoo like on their chest, and like, what the fuck is that?
They're wearing a necklace that it's like the US flag. Yeah, exactly.
Go USA.
And they're like, wait a second.
Right.
Yeah. So it's again a fun little like aspect of like the CIA and covert missions and stuff like that. And it is very stilly. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm very intense, like very intense to like get these people out, but also the fact that they're like, you're a film crew on set, like looking at locations and this, and you're just like, we get it.
The work around it was just like,
right.
What?
Well, and I wonder now if that still happens. Like, I wonder if we have 100%. These like, but like to the fact where it's like, okay, we're gonna like disguise the way you look and sneak you through this way. But I feel like we have enough technology where we're like, just get on that Black Hawk and like we're just gonna fly you out of here. You know what I mean?
Well, yes and no. One, my counterpoint would be witness protection program.
Fair.
They change your whole identity.
Yeah.
Two, I think it's just very hard to be able to like safely bring in a chopper, extract and bring out. I mean,
that's fair.
That's the whole point of Black Hawk Down.
Another great movie you should watch. It is crazy also, though, going back to the witness protection program. One, I don't think I could ever do it. Like, that's rough. But two, I'm like, you know what? I'll take the risk.
Okay.
Two, like, your neighbor could be witness protection program.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I could be in the witness protection program.
Your little neighbor. I don't think so.
No.
Are you in the witness protection program?
I can't tell you. I'd be really stupid if I was to put my face and voice out on the internet publicly for everyone and trying to get more views.
So if anyone knows anyone who hates social media, maybe there's a reason.
There you go.
But speaking of social media, thanks for following.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for
exactly. You can follow us on all forms of social media at WDYK_podcast. And like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll catch you next time.
Catch you on the flippity flop.
On the next caper. Boo. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.